Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As always, a pleasure to be standing in this place to give my thoughts on the bill that's before us. And it's unfortunate that with yet another omnibus bill, one that clocks in at almost 400 pages, we are unfortunately having to debate this bill under the yoke of time allocation, which was moved earlier this morning, giving us, I believe, 5 hours for report stage and 5 hours for third reading for a bill of this magnitude. You know, Mr. Speaker, I believe this is my fourth Liberal budget that I've had to sit through. I was one of those members who was elected in 2015 and have served the entire duration thus far. And I've noticed two things with respect to Liberals and their budgets. They like to always repeat two things. Number one is that they were the ones that brought in a middle-class tax cut, and that they are lifting all of these children out of poverty with the child benefits. So let me address the first one, Mr. Speaker, before the government House Leader cheers too loudly on that front. I want to point out two facts. So number one is that in 2017, and these are statistics from Statistics Canada, the average income in Canada was $46,700, and the median income was $35,000. Now, the Liberals are claiming this is a middle-class tax cut, when in fact it is actually the middle income tax bracket cut, which they lowered by 1.5%. Now, Mr. Speaker, it's very important because they keep on perpetuating this basic thing. So the middle tax bracket starts at $46,000 and goes up to $93,000. So that means that for the average Canadian, this benefit is not going to help them. And I can also clearly speak for most of my constituents. They do not have incomes that go into that range, or if they do, they are basically getting maybe just the first amount. What the Liberals did do, however, by giving that tax cut for that bracket, was they gave themselves all the maximum tax cut, I believe of about $675,000, because a member of Parliament's salary allows them to command the full benefits of that tax cut, when most Canadians, as evidenced by Statistics Canada, are not in fact benefiting from that tax cut. So, you know, I've spent almost 4 years in this place listening to Liberals talk about that, and the evidence does not back them up. It is not the middle class. It is a middle income tax cut by 1.5%, and the wealthiest of Canadians under $200,000 of income are the ones who benefited the most. So let's get that out of the way. The other thing, too, is with the child benefit. Now, I will give the Liberals this. Absolutely, for a lot of families, it was great to see an increase in child benefits. However, and this is the big however, when I go door knocking in my riding, especially in the South End in Langford, which is populated by a lot of young families, the biggest concern they have is with the availability and the affordability of childcare. There are simply not enough spaces. And so, yes, it's nice to get that bump up in child benefits, but if that other family member, whether it be the one partner or the other, wants to actually go out and get a second job, it is actually the lack of availability of spaces that's really holding them back. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, when I talk to small businesses in the region, and I'm talking, you know, businesses that maybe have 3, 4, or 5 employees, when you lose one employee because that person is going on maternity leave, that is a huge part of your workforce that you're losing. And if small businesses could have that national childcare system like the NDP has been advocating for, that would actually help them, because that employee could make a return to work in a timely manner and safe in the knowledge that his or her child actually has a space to go to. So it makes economic sense, which is why we've actually had chambers of commerce talk about it. Now, this particular bill, I want to talk about some of the things that are missing, because, you know, in British Columbia, we have an opioid crisis which has absolutely ravaged our province. I believe in 2017, we lost 4,000 people. I think that was across the country, and it has been absolutely detrimental. detrimental. And yet in this budget, we don't see any further resources to help those frontline workers who are dealing with this. We don't see any move by the federal government to match the government of BC in declaring this a national emergency under the Federal Emergencies Act, which would allow the federal government to deploy more resources. Pharmacare was a missed opportunity. I brought this up during my adjournment proceedings debate last night when I was following up on a question that I asked in February. It needs to be said again, Mr. Speaker, this Liberal Party first promised a national pharmacare system in 1997, 22 years ago. They've had the benefit of having had majority governments in 1993, 1997, in the year 2000, and again in this mandate, the 2015 mandate, and yet here we are at the very tail end of this Liberal government's majority mandate, and what do we have? We have an expert panel who's going to release more recommendations, which are probably going to be a repeat of what we all know is that what is a national pharmacare system will actually save Canadians money, and we know it has to be comprehensive, universal, and fully public. It is the missing part of our national Medicare system. Housing. Now, this Liberal government likes to make a great big deal of its national housing strategy, but when you look at the numbers, the lion's share of the money actually starts flowing after the next federal election. And I appreciate that, Liberals keep on getting up and talking about all the things that are coming. I've dug into the numbers in my own particular riding. A lot of the funding announcements are actually federal funding that was already in place before the national housing strategy. And if they want to raise the issue, well, I've got the phone number to Mayor Stu Young of the city of Langford, one of the fastest growing municipalities in all of British Columbia, if not Canada, and he could tell them about where the federal government has been. MIA, that's what he will say. Now, going on, if we look, the other big thing too, I have a lot of students in my area. My riding is home to Royal Roads University. We have Vancouver Island University, the Cowichan campus, and of course not too far away, the great University of Victoria, which is where I attended school. Of course, the price of tuition has gone up considerably since I went to university. I remember I still thought it was fairly high back in my day, but these days I look at the costs that students are paying and the debt they are being saddled with, and the fact that the federal government is still collecting interest off that debt. When a person gets into their late 20s and early 30s, those are supposed to be the most productive years of their life. We're asking them to start a family, start that new job. But if they're saddled with that crushing debt and having to pay interest on it, interest which the federal government is collecting, that's a missed opportunity. I don't know why we are profiting off of this crushing student debt. That was an opportunity that was missed. And I certainly hope that the students who are intending to vote take note of that and take note of where the different political parties stand on that issue. I think, Mr. Speaker, I know my time is coming to an end. I think I'll end too with the total missed opportunity that comes with the federal government's continued subsidies on oil and gas, because this was a clear Liberal promise that they have failed to deliver. And you look at the billions of dollars that are going into an industry which we know we have to start leveling off if we are going to actually meet our climate targets. We have a carbon budget, we're not meeting it. And to anyone who complains about the costs of doing so, the costs of transition, well, I ask you to look at the forecast for the wildfire budget in British Columbia for this year. What will the costs be of actually mitigating and adapting to climate change? The billions of dollars we're going to have to spend to help people when their homes are flooded out, when their farms are burned, or when they cannot even produce a crop because of successive droughts or flooding. These are the costs that are coming our way, and they are going to be momentous, and they are going to dwarf anything. So the fact that we are continuing to subsidize this industry, when in fact the new economy of the future, the renewable energy economy of the future, is the one that's growing, it's the one where the jobs are, it's the one demanding the skill sets of many of our oil and gas workers. We need to stop subsidizing oil and gas. We need to put our money in the economy of the future, and I think this was a missed opportunity to actually proclaim loudly here, 2019, that we understand the science. We know the deadline we're working against, and we absolutely must honor not only our present but our children's future by making that transition. It will require a Herculean effort, and unfortunately what I have seen thus far is not matching the reality that we live in. So, Mr. Speaker, with that I'll conclude. I will be voting against C-97. Again, it's full of missed opportunities, and we could have done so much better. Thank you.